Hi everyone, welcome back to the Blood Ties podcast. I'm Molly Wansell and I'm here with my father, Geoffrey Wansell.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Blood Ties 2.0 or Blood Ties The Return or More Blood Ties
More
or
Blood
just
Ties.
Blood Ties the sequel.
The rehash? No,
Yes.
that doesn't sound
the
very
reboot.
good. Reboot. How are you, Dad?
I'm fine, yes. I had a birthday.
You had a big birthday.
Yeah, it was very exciting.
It was really nice. We had such a nice dinner.
Lovely. It was very good people.
Really nice, and lots of, there was a lot of love for Geoffrey in the room.
Yes.
Everyone stood up and gave a speech about how great you were.
I was very touched.
And it was pretty delightful.
Oh.
And all the food was cold, apart from the pudding.
Apart from the pudding and the potatoes.
Oh, the potatoes, yeah, the potatoes.
Yes.
It was the most Geoffrey dinner ever. Like, the food was very Geoffrey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carefully selected.
He's a bird when it comes to dinner time.
I'm afraid I am. Especially dinners. I like lunches, but dinners I find difficult.
I know, you're not an
a dinner
eating person,
really.
are you? No.
But Mo, you've been to Pembrokeshire.
Yeah. I don't know if it was exactly Pembrokeshire. I think it was like the north part of where Pembrokeshire is, and I don't want to be rude to anyone who's Welsh. But it was like near Cardigan, but we're on the north part of that bit. But it was really nice. Had a really
Wonderful.
nice
And
time.
you swam in the sea.
Swam in the sea, yeah. Went to a place called Munt. M-W-N-T, Munt.
Wow.
And swam in the sea. We were the only people there.
Very, very good.
It was really nice, yeah.
I don't like swimming in the sea.
No?
No. Don't know what's in it. The sea, I mean.
Well, I agree with you. Nothing on earth would possess me to go into the middle of the ocean and jump off a boat for a swim. Thanks so much. Just not for me.
Absolutely
I did it
not.
once. It was absolutely terrifying.
No.
Never again. But this is like paddling. I mean, at one point I couldn't stand up, but like we were in. There's not. You can see. This is not. You can see dolphins from there sometimes. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I can't think anything too bad's coming in there. So yeah, it was really nice. I had a lovely time.
Good. Well, this story today, as I should warn at once, the trigger warning it is difficult and it's immensely sad, and I think it's important just to warn everyone before we start that it does contain unhappiness and unpleasantness.
Okay.
Not that many of our stories don't.
I was going to
contain.
say, but yes, this is a particularly.
This is a particularly nasty one. And,
okay. And what is it? What are we doing?
It's called The Devil in Disguise.
The Devil in Disguise.
The story of the Devil in Disguise concerns a man called Gregory Vincent Greene, who was born in December 1966. He lived in Dearborn, a suburb of Detroit in Michigan, Motor City, you may recall it. And as far as we know, he had an absolutely comfortable, balanced, ordinary childhood. By all accounts, there was no divorce, there was no separation, there was no child abuse. It was a perfectly ordinary, comfortable upbringing. But there was something going on and I'd love to know more about what his parents were like and what their relationship was like. But we know very, very little. I'd particularly like to know about how his relationship with his mother, because one of the things that this chilling story underlines is Greene's incredible hatred, I don't think that's putting it too strongly, hatred of women. Anyway, when he's about 24, Greene marries. He marries a girl called Tonya, who's a couple of years younger than he is. And she's had a checkered history. She already has two children, two daughters. They were aged 5 and 8. In other words, they were born when she was 14 and 17. Tonya was attracted to Greene. I mean, many people were attracted to Greene. He was described by one woman as very cute. He was a handsome, young black man with a nice, charming manner, really agreeable manner. But there was something going on because he was very quick to lose his temper. In particular, he didn't want any woman who he had a relationship with ever to leave him. He took a very possessive view of Tonya. Well, they married, And indeed, Tonya became pregnant by Gregory Greene. But she found him increasingly difficult, and she told one friend that she was going to leave him, but she didn't. In fact, sadly, she never got the chance to. Greene was not going to let Tonya go. He wouldn't let any woman that he regarded as his have the possibility of another relationship. He was possessed by some form of jealousy. Now, not necessarily justified, because, in fact, Tonya, although she had had a history of another man, she wasn't unfaithful to Greene, but that wasn't how Greene saw it. Greene saw it as, she's mine and nobody else's, and if I can't have her, nobody else will. And so, tragically, on the 14th of July 1991, Greene stabbed Tonya repeatedly in the face, neck, chest, back, killing her, and in the process killing the child. The baby would have been about 5 months. But he wasn't plagued with remorse or anger, or he just became utterly calm. And indeed, he called the police after killing her, and he calmly told them when they arrived, "Oh, well, I stabbed her. She's in the kitchen." And he pointed out the murder weapon, a knife, which is on top of the fridge. He didn't try and deny it. He didn't try and run away. He wasn't overcome with grief. He was just sitting there as if, well, that's what I've done. He had this tendency not to connect with what you might describe as real and ordinary emotion. He was very cold. He didn't give that impression when you met him, because he was actually could be quite charming, quite warm. But underneath there was a sort of icy interior that it was difficult not to realise if you got to know him. Anyway, in March the following year, in 1992, Greene pleads guilty to a second-degree murder and is given a sentence of 15 to 25 years. He had planned momentarily, at least, to launch an insanity defence, but he was found perfectly competent to stand trial, and he never gave the impression of any way of being mad or indeed in any way insane. Quite the opposite. He was more than rational, in fact, rather over calm. Well, Greene was sent to jail, and he spent the next 16 years behind bars. He was compliant. He wasn't belligerent. He wasn't a difficult prisoner. He didn't have an awful record of violence. But what was abundantly clear was that he lacked empathy, and he showed absolutely no remorse for killing Tonya. He was refused parole 4 times on those grounds of lack of remorse and lack of empathy. But then, quite a well-known figure in the local community, a man called Pastor Fred Harris, is well-known in the Detroit region because he ran a church called the Church of the Risen Christ, decided that he would come to Greene's defence. And he'd known him because Greene and his family had attended the church. And he said, indeed, to the parole board, Greene, I knew Greene before the mishap, he called it. I wouldn't call it a mishap, stabbing your wife and unborn child relentlessly, but there you go. And he also said, and I think this is the most extraordinary quote, he said, Greene has paid for his unfortunate lack of self-control. Well, I don't think Greene demonstrated lack of self-control. I mean, he was so controlled when the police arrived, it was almost unbelievable. Well, anyway, the pastor's intervention, in the end, convinced the parole board, because Harris went on to tell them, look, he'll be welcomed back into the church community, and that community will help him readjust to society. Well, the parole board relented, and in July 2008, Greene was, when he was, by then was 41, and he spent a great deal of his adult life in prison, but nevertheless, he's back in the community. And then comes the horrible, dreadful, ironic twist. 2 years later, in December 2010, Greene marries Pastor Harris's daughter, Faith. They'd met originally at the Church of the Risen Christ. They'd known each other. Faith had 2 children by an earlier relationship. They were quite old, Chadney Allen Jr. and Cara Allen. Well, there we have Greene now with a newly minted family, married to Faith, daughter of the local pastor, living in a comfortable home, working, still living in Dearborn, suburb of Detroit. And indeed, Faith and Greene go on to have 2 more children. One born in 2011 called Coy, they were both daughters, and the following year a daughter called Kaylee. They lived in Hope Street in Dearborn. But by 2013, Faith has realised that Greene has got a very dark side. In fact, she applies for a personal protection order because he's being threatening and belligerent to her. But there's no evidence of it. The police haven't been consistently called to the house, and the judge refuses the personal protection order. But within a matter of a couple of years, Faith has absolutely run out of patience with him. And she, in 2013, she files for divorce on the grounds that their marriage has broken down and is irreconcilable. Greene, of course, jealousy still being an enormous part of his makeup, suspects her of infidelity. There's absolutely no record of that. Well, they reconcile, but it doesn't work. And in August 2016, a process server arrives at Greene's house on a Saturday to serve him the papers for divorce, and he starts shouting and bellowing and losing his temper, because the same thing applies to Faith as applied to Tonya. If he wasn't going to have Faith, no one else was going to have her. And that is so infinitely chilling, because it was almost as if it was inevitable what would happen next. On the 20th of September 2016, Faith came home from work in time to spend time with her young daughters, Coy and Kaylee. And the older ones, who are now teenagers, were in the house. And she goes to bed about 10:30. Greene, not drunk, not high on drugs, completely sober and in command of his senses, wakes her up at about 11. And he persuades her at gunpoint, to go into the cellar, the basement of the house in Michigan, along with the 2 older children, Chadney and Cara. And he persuades them all to zip tie each other up. And he keeps them in the basement. And this is the point when I find it really difficult. He then collects the 2 girls, the 2 infant girls, Coy and Kaylee, from their beds, takes them into the garage, puts them in the back of the car, attaches a hose to the exhaust pipe, puts them sleeping, or pretty sleepy, on the back seat, puts the hose through the window, and gasses them with carbon monoxide. He then, when they're both dead, he takes them out of the car, back upstairs, and puts them on their beds, dead. He then returns to the basement. He is determined that Faith, his wife, should suffer for apparently just the presumption to say that he can leave her. No one is going to leave Gregory Greene. And so he sets out, he's duct tape her mouth. He sets out to torture her with a box cutter, what we would call a Stanley knife. And he slashes her face. He then makes her watch while he shoots her two older children. First Chadney and then Cara, both in the back, killing them. She is, beyond distraught, because of course he then explains to her what he's done to the two children they had together. But he wants her to live. He doesn't want her to die. He wants her to remain alive and to suffer the enduring loss of her 4 children. Once again, just as he had with Tonya, he's incredibly calm. At about 1:15 in the morning on September the 21st, 2016, he dials 911 and he calmly tells the dispatcher that I've murdered my family. And then he waits on the patio for the police to arrive. He makes no attempt to run, makes no attempt to do anything, except perhaps glory in killing 4 completely innocent young people, 2 infants, in the same way that he perhaps took some glory in killing Tonya all those years before. Once again, Greene is completely found competent to stand trial, and in February 2017 he pleads guilty to 4 counts of second-degree murder, to torture of his wife Faith, and felony firearm charges for the gun that he'd used to force them into the basement. He's given a prison sentence of 47 to 102 years, and at that point Greene is 50 years old. The judge says, and I think it's a wonderful and in many ways telling quote, "Fathers are supposed to protect their children, and husbands are supposed to protect their wives." Absolutely true, of course. Greene, of course, will remain in prison for the rest of his natural life. But Faith, who has recovered from these dreadful injuries he's inflicted on her, goes to the sentencing hearing and gives a statement, and it is the most remarkable piece of bravery. This woman who has seen her family destroyed and has been brutally injured herself says, and I think it's the most wonderful description, she says of him, "You're a con artist, you're a monster, you're a devil in disguise. Your justice will come when you burn in hell for all eternity. What you did not work. I will not suffer as you intended." It's an extraordinary statement. And later she was to admit, "Some days I wish I died. There's a hole in my heart and soul that will never be repaired." Greene, once again, utterly unrepentant, showing no remorse and no empathy for what he's done, retires to prison, where he is still today. It is, if there is a chilling case, I think it's one of the most chilling I've ever done, because he showed no remorse whatever. And as one British tabloid described it memorably, he's the man who killed his family twice. And that, Mo, is the devil in disguise.
Well, thanks, Dad. Or I don't know if we say thanks, but
not really.
I think we appreciate you telling us the stories, and I know the listeners appreciate the effort that you go to tell the stories with as much sensitivity as possible, considering how tricky the subject matter is.
I think that's the whole point, that more and more we think that true crime must remember the families of the victims and the relatives of the victims and the friends, because they're the ones who never, ever get any relief. It's a continued burden throughout the rest of their lives. And while someone, and I'm not saying they get off scot-free, they go to jail often for a very, very long time, never to return, but they, in a sense, have achieved what they wanted, whereas the victims' families and friends, they are still carrying the burden and will carry it to their grave time after time. I talk to relatives and they say, I'll never recover. I cannot recover.
Yeah, and it's generational. That generational trauma passes down. That's
it does.
a thing.
It does, I'm afraid.
Well, that was The Devil in Disguise. And maybe you could say something vaguely jolly just before we go.
Well, what I would say is that the terrible things, as I've said many times, really terrible things happen to good people. But the world is still full of positives. The world is still full of hope.
Yeah.
And if I was convinced that it was only bad people that had any impact on the world, I would be deeply depressed, because I've done so many cases with so many bad people. But I don't give up hope. I'm very, very positive about the world.
You are. You're a glass half full guy. Thank you to all the people that help us. Our producer Peter, my brother Dan, who did the music, my friend George, who did our caricature, and to Geoffrey for all the hard work. Thank you, and to you, the listeners, thank you so much.
Thank you indeed, and remember, as I said a moment ago, bad things happen to good people, so do be careful out there.